Hello Sagittarius and welcome to your monthly horoscope for August. This is for the Sun or the Ascendant. I'm going to give you a broad overview of what to expect. Please stay with me. I will then dive deep to give you in much greater detail each of the key influences and dates, particularly critical to your sign and of course your ruling planet of Jupiter. And there is something really exciting to tell you about at the heart of this month, a potential for some kind of a real breakthrough that Jupiter can help you with. But right at the start of this month, the Sun and Mercury are in your sister fire sign of Leo. And that's going to give you a great deal of desire to open up your horizons and be more free-spirited, the part of your nature that's often so strong. The problem, Sagittarius, is there's a crunching alliance between the planet of drive and passion, Mars, Uranus, the planet of freedom and truth, and the North Node, a karmic influence that kind of gives us a dividend on our past attitudes. They're coming together on the 1st, but they're squaring off with Saturn, the planet of structure, but also the planet of restriction, which is in house 3. Now that gathering of Mars, Uranus, and the North Node are in house 6. That's about obligations. So just at a time when you're wanting to be more free-spirited, if there are strands in your situation which are stopping you going for what you really want to do, get the air on your face, be more adventurous, travel, be much more flexible in your approach, more spontaneous, that could create an enormous amount of tension. So I must share that with you. But also from the 16th through to the 20th, your ruling planet Jupiter is in a truly joyful link with Venus. So I can't wait to share that with you. But later on this month, I think your thinking and the variety that you want to bring to your world is going to focus much more on your actual worldly connections. Now that could be through your work, your professional situation, your goals and ambitions, which don't necessarily have to be to do with work. They could be things that you're really passionate about, like a hobby that you want to take a lot more seriously. But responsibilities are going to be coming much more to the fore as the month comes to a close. And there is a key new moon to tell you about. But of course, Mars, the planet of passion, is going to be moving on the 20th into your sector of relating for 8 long months. That's really rare, so I need to go through that with you very, very carefully. And Sagittarius, there are 2 very powerful oppositions this month that I need to share with you. The first is between the Sun and Saturn, between the 12th and the 17th, and the second is in the last week when Venus goes opposite Saturn. In both cases, the Sun initially in Leo and Venus still in Leo, opposite Saturn. That is quite a complex pair of energies that I do need to explain to you. Now, if you'd like to ascend above this Zodiac broadcast and embrace more serious astrology, if you give me 3 pieces of birth data of time, date and place, I can give you a roadmap that can guide you for the rest of your life, and also a 12-month personal horoscope forecast, and you can get 30% off with my special package. Please see the link below. Now, no 2 charts are the same. This is technical astrology. This goes beyond just the zodiac sign of Sagittarius or your ascendant. So please see below for more. And finally, I've crashed through the 100,000 subs mark. Thank you so much if you already have subbed. If you've yet to do so, I'd be honoured if you did so now. Please click or tap on the bell notification symbol. So Sagittarius, your August forecast begins with the Sun and Mercury, the planet of communication. And Mercury in the 9th house, as it is at the start of this month, is brilliant for making plans around things like higher education, to do with travel arrangements, scheduling things. But also the ninth house is very much in keeping with the basic philosophy of your sign. You know, it's very much about your interest in knowledge and gaining more information to broaden your horizons. That's what makes you such an exciting person. But that collision of energy between Mars and Uranus could be mighty tense. Uranus for the last few years has been really testing you around your everyday routines. Now, you may have felt that most of all through COVID and having to alter things to stay safe and fit in with whatever edicts have been in place wherever you have been more locally. But in a personal context, the sixth house is about sacrifice, but it's also about health, fitness and diet. And Uranus tends to sort of break down things that are outmoded, but it's also brilliant for innovation. But when we bring Mars into the mix, we bring a degree of impatience. In fact, Mars and Uranus together is quite an explosive combination. And having the North Node there also suggests that your past good deeds towards others can bring plaudits and recognition in the fact that people can really be very grateful and appreciative of any sacrifices you've made. But equally, if you feel that you're not getting your due rewards, the combination between these three and the more restrictive, restraining energy of Saturn in your sector of everyday thinking can make you physically tense, but also quite resentful. And then that energy of the Sun and Mercury is seeing you want to burst out of any hold that these everyday routines are placing upon you. But it's not a binary thing. You can't have all the freedom without any of the responsibility. But clearly, none of us needs total responsibility without any freedom. Our lives would be out of balance. So I think that's what you're going to be grappling with right at the start of this month. In fact, Mars is going to be squaring up with Saturn through to the 12th. So the first 10-12 days of this month could create a degree of frustration. So just be conscious of that. But on the 4th, Mercury returns to the sign of Virgo. And that's very much more to do with how you connect to the wider world. Now, I mentioned before that later in the month, your career or goals and ambitions are really going to come more sharply into focus. But it will start the process from the 4th, but it's when the Sun moves on the 23rd into the sign of Virgo, joining up with Mercury briefly, that's when you're really going to be wanting much greater acknowledgement for your talents. Or if you're someone who's looking for an audience, try to find ways to raise your profile, or just becoming much more single-minded about your big ambitions and aims. But I'll go on to that in a short while. But Mercury moving into Virgo is very positive in one way, and that is that Mercury rules the sign of Virgo, and its natural discrimination can help you to start to pick out the things that you do want to be involved with and the things you don't. So that energy that's been created between the combination of Mars, Uranus and the North Node, you're going to have to sort of deal with that, I feel, and Mercury will help you to do that. And it could see you thinking about retraining, changing course or direction around your work, applying for a job. You know, the more communicational side of Mercury could be sending a message linked to that role in the wider world. But on the 11th, Venus replaces Mercury in the sign of Leo. Venus loves being in Leo. If you think about it, Leo is very much about a need for recognition. It's a bit of a show-off. It's very warm, affectionate, playful. So Venus here, the planet of love and affection, but crucially also of a lute. That's a good change for you, because I think your natural love of different cultures and people at a distance and who are different from you, that's really going to be switched on from that point. So that's lovely. But on the 12th, there is a full moon. And this is where the Sun in Leo is opposed by the Moon in Aquarius, where of course we have that retreat in Saturn. But this is going to be squaring Uranus as well. And I think for you, because you're someone who loves to debate very often, you could find yourself having quite a contentious discussion or two over the following 2 weeks. But that discussion may even be with yourself. It could be an internal discussion, because What the full moon is asking you to do is check out some of the changes that you're wanting to make in your life and challenge yourself about them, challenge the veracity of them. But you could find yourself having debates for fun. Nothing new there, I suspect. But just be aware that with Uranus in the mix, you know, something could be said, something quite penetrating could be said, an opinion could come back to you that you're not necessarily expecting. Now, from the 12th through to the 17th, we do have a very tense energy there. So the sun's drive, the sun's desire to open up your world is really tested. And it's tested by Saturn. Now, this energy can be quite frustrating and limiting. So if you're wanting to go on a journey from the 12th to the 17th, be prepared for some delays. And we know that the travel industry generally is really being hit. For me, it wouldn't be a massive surprise if COVID restrictions really started to bite in much more harshly again, because the square between Saturn and Uranus that goes on all this month, well, that's really very much linked, I think, or has been linked to the way that the restrictive energies of Saturn have limited our freedom to move around. It's a bit of a no-brainer, to be honest. But on the 16th through to the 20th, that beautiful link that I've been telling you about is between the two planets of fortune. Venus, the lesser benefit, still makes it a benefit, and Jupiter, the greater. But Venus in house 9 linking beautifully with Jupiter in house 5. I feel that, you know, if you are single, despite the fact that Jupiter is in a retrograde at this point of the year, I still think there could be a very dynamic conversation you have. But because of the opposition between the Sun and Saturn, it needs to be with someone who really speaks your language, who perhaps has your worldview. I think they can come from a very different background, but their values really need to align with yours. Now on the 20th, Mars moves into your 7th house. This is where we engage with others. Mars is, of course, about being robust. It can be, you know, in more historical sense, about battles, fighting. But in the 7th house is the sector of partnership. Now, people who have in their natal charts Mars on the 7th house often find it quite difficult to have satisfactory relationships because, you know, they can be quite bossy or they want things on their own terms. They don't necessarily find it easy to collaborate and cooperate. However, for you, over this 8-month extended period, which is extremely rare, I think it could bring someone really important into your life. Whether it's a new addition, a new partnership, perhaps a new professional association, that's really possible. But Mars can also help you to fortify your boundaries away from the people that you don't really want in your world. So that's going to be really interesting for you. On the 23rd, the Sun climbs high in the sky, giving you more desire to use that restlessness that's manifested itself earlier in the month in terms of how you link with the wider world. The 24th, however, sees Uranus slam on the brakes. Now, it's within 3 degrees of Saturn in the 90-degree square all this month, but Uranus goes backwards right through to the 21st of January next year. So it's the last of the outer planets to go into retrograde. And as I've already mentioned, it's really stressing your work sector, your health sector, stress being the operative perhaps, because Uranus maybe is pushing you to change something that maybe you don't want to change. Maybe the status quo for once really appeals to you. Maybe you're someone who's changed quite a few things in recent years and still hasn't quite found the place you want to be. And I think the internal mechanisms of the retrograde can help you to delve deep to try to find the solution to this. But on the 26th, Mercury moves into Libra, which is your sector of friendship. It also forges a beautiful link with Mars in the last week. There could be a contract that's going to get discussed that can be really helpful and important to you. Also, just before Mercury moves into Libra, I should say it also forges a very penetrating link to Pluto. And if you do need to think very carefully about a professional offer or finances, you can do so with great clarity. The 27th, however, does see that Virgo new moon. Great for giving your career or professional hopes some kind of platform or springboard, but it is in a square with Mars. So as much as you may, aim high over the next month, it's important to find ways to work well with others. And there could be a few power battles that could play out professionally in the following 4 weeks. If you're in a relationship where one of you has a strong need to be in control of the relationship, this new moon could also bring that into focus as well. And speaking of relationships, that opposition, the second opposition between Venus and Saturn after the Sun's opposition with Saturn. And if there is some kind of relationship that isn't going quite so well, some cool words could really be exchanged towards the end of this month. It doesn't have to be terminal, but it is interesting when Saturn's opposite Venus, how it can really cool down, exchanges. Saturn has a habit, particularly in the retrograde, I think, of potentially being quite ruthless. So you can be quite blunt at times. Maybe someone's going to be blunt to you. Maybe there is something you need to discuss with someone, and it may not be a partner, it may be a colleague or a boss. But some kind of frank exchange is definitely possible as this month draws to a close. So you can see it's a complex month, Sagittarius. Your love of the big picture, of travel, higher education and knowledge are definitely showcased, but there's a lot of need to grapple with the everyday realities of your situation to try and get things running as smoothly and as in balance as possible.